Hello and welcome to the One-Eyed Fan, where we discuss AFL topics from a biased perspective. Tonight we'll be announcing our nominations for Bartel and Meatloaf Awards for the best and worst performances of two in the finals. And with the Brownlow medal being awarded on Monday night, we'll be discussing whether the award should be to the best player in the league, regardless of tribunal record, followed by our Brownlow and finals tips. With me is Grillsy, the Reformed Eagle.
G'day, Grillsy.
Langers, the Unbiased Pie.
G'day, legends.
And I'm the Fig Man and support the greatest team of all. Currently, the leaderboard shows Mumford leading the Meatloaf and Dusty leading the Bartel Award. To begin the discussions on worst performer is the Reformed Eagle, Grillsy.
Well, there was two games on the weekend. One, Geelong v Sydney. The other one, GWS versus West Coast. GWS expected to win. West Coast didn't put up much of a fight. No real standouts in the game. On the other hand, Geelong versus Sydney. Where do I start? There's a man, he's called John Longmire, a.k.a. The Horse. Led down to the stables on Thursday night and neutered. He became a mere gelding. His coaching performance has to go down in folklore as one of the greatest F-ups of all time. Not only was the Geelong midfield average without Dangerfield in there, but Dangerfield wasn't in there. He was up forward. And down back, he's let their only forward who can kick multiple goals and win them a game, Buddy Franklin, get tag-teamed by Harry Taylor. And Harry Henderson, for Christ's sake. Wasn't that a TV show in the 80s? Now, back on point. Johnny Longmire, not only did you stop there, you let your best midfielder get tagged in the midfield by some 6'9" Geelong part-time ruckman. And he did nothing, absolutely nothing, to stop any of these events occurring. Was Dangerfield double-teamed in the Geelong forward line? No. Was a spare man put back in front of him to stop him leading up? No. Johnny Longmire, you failed. And the Sydney midfield, you're a close second. Not only was the Geelong midfield pretty average without Dangerfield in there, they tore you an a-hole from one end of the ground to the other. You let Mitch Duncan get about 444 possessions. 39 uncontested. What is wrong with you? No pressure. Couldn't kick to Buddy Franklin. Buddy Franklin had 18 sprints, the most on the ground for any player. So he's leading, he's doing his bit, and what are you doing? Kicking over his head, kicking in front of him on the ground. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I'm moving on.
Thanks, Grillsy. The West Coast Sydney bias is still prevalent there. Our next view comes from the Unbiased Pie, Langers.
Jeez, I'll tell you, that's a hard act to follow. But that was some great deflection from the fact that West Coast choked on the weekend, Grillsy. Well done, mate. But of that Sydney game, look, I was watching the first opening and Callum Sinclair came out and absolutely floored Tom Stewart. And he went down quicker than the North Tower. And I thought, this guy's in for a big game, coming off a massive first final, but he went absolutely missing. A measly 2 disposals for the entire game. But my number one was Lewis Jetta, a.k.a. the Jetstar. Best be changing your name to Tiger Air, son, because you failed to take off. He will be forever known as the premiership player who once upon a time outsprinted Cyril Rioli. And they're my 2 nominations for the Meatloaf.
Thanks, Langers. Now, with great consideration, I nominate Gary Rowan. The Sydney forward has failed to step up in recent final series, which has severely tainted his career. And Friday night's performance will do nothing to change his perception as a finals flop. He was barely sodded all night, and when he did have possession, he coughed it up. And to top it off, he was run down by Meatloaf, a player highly criticised for his lack of defensive pressure. And my second nomination, that goes to the $1 million man, Buddy Franklin. He went missing in the first half and wasted opportunities presented to him in the third quarter when the Suns were mounting a charge. Missing 3 shots on goal for the game, coughing the footy up, or putting pressure on teammates due to his poor decision-making, and then losing a foot race to Andrew Mackey is unacceptable. And being injured is no excuse once you cross that white line, big fella. So our Meatloaf nominations this week are Callum Sinclair, Lewis Jetta, John Longmire, Gary Rowan, and the Sydney midfield. Thanks, guys. Now, to kick off our Bartel nominations, we'll bring back Grillsy.
And I'm going to focus on the same game again, the Geelong and Sydney game, of course. Was there another game? I didn't see any other game. There was one man. It was a bit of a show in the first half, and his name was Paddy Dangerfield. Taking marks at will, kicking goals as he pleased. 4 in the first half, 15 contested possessions for the game. It was pretty simple, really. Stop danger, stop Geelong. Sydney, no, we don't do that. We let him run riot, and he did. For Geelong supporters, it was a pleasure to watch. For me, I was cringing. And that was my only Bartel award for the weekend because no one else really stood out to me.
Okay. Thanks, Grillsy. Next up, we have Langers.
Yeah, guys, my first nomination, look, I think it has to go to the Cats rotating back line. Led by Zach Tui and Tom Stewart. They were outstanding all game, completely shutting down any advances. And it's a shame that spoils aren't considered stats because Tui and Stewart would have racked up a ton of them. But if it wasn't for that back line, the Geelong midfield and certainly their forwards wouldn't have had the perception of that dominance that they did. But come big finals games, you're rolling with some pretty big dick players. And none other than Chris Scott making 2 crucial and gutsy big plays. Obviously pushing danger forward, but secondly, putting Mark Blitzarves on a shutdown role on Josh Kennedy. I thought those 2 decisions were well played, and he gets my number 1 nom for this week.
Okay, thanks, Langers. Now, with the much celebrated duo of Dangerwood receiving the adoration of AFL fans across the nation, this man has flown under the radar and should have been nominated for the All-Australian team after a stellar season. But after missing out, Mitch Duncan is now a nomination for the prestigious Bartel Award. On Friday night, Mitch Duncan was unstoppable, kicking 2 goals, and his relentless running contributed to 36 possessions and 10 marks. He stood up in the middle with Paddy down forward and Selwood recovering from injury below his best. And is now part of the Dunk-Woodfield combination set to dominate the remainder of the final series. My second nomination is the Cats superstar, Paddy Dangerfield. I agree with you there, Grillsy, who shockingly started up forward for Geelong on a nervous All-Australian backman, Dane Rampy. Now, I'll tell you this. Dane Rampy did not need a shower after the game because Danger gave him a bath, kicking 4 goals, putting the game beyond the Swans before reach. Putting the game beyond the Swans' reach before half-time. So for this week, our nominations are the Cats backline, Chris Scott, Dangerfield and Mitch Duncan for the Bartel Award. And I could not be happier seeing blue and white representing there. Now, there's been great contention and debate on whether the Brownlow medal should be awarded to the best player rather than the best and fairest. With the amount of changes to our game, the current players are being ruled ineligible for actions that were lauded in the past. Take the Grundy tackle, for example. Would Mark Rashuda have been celebrated or criticised in his Brownlow years? Celebrated, of course. A Mogavos bump that was admired throughout the football world would now be illegal and he would be ruled ineligible. Now, the AFL are not likely to change their position as this may affect results of the past. Retrospectively, awarding Chris Grant the Brownlow and taking it off Robert Harvey is unfair by the standards set by the day. However, is it fair to rule a player ineligible for components of the game that were lauded in the past and are fundamental of the game, but due to an accidental injury, they are ruled ineligible? With rule changes, there must be adaptation, not only by the players, but also the governance. Perhaps the fairness component could be revised so that the only acts of malicious intent should be considered rather than legitimate traditional football actions. Perhaps the tribunal could determine a player's eligibility with respect to their intentions and whether the action was within the spirit of the over 100-year-old traditions of our game. Or have we lost too much faith in the tribunal to empower them with this responsibility and leave the Brownlow eligibility as it is? Seeing as the players of this generation are playing under different rules than those in the past, does the AFL need to update its rules of eligibility? to present his views first on the debate is Langers.
Yeah, guys, look, I'm a bit of a traditionalist here, and I think there's been far too much of our game that is being changed, namely with the rules. So, look, I think it's got to stay as the best and fairest. You know, it's part of our tradition. It's part of our history. And if you start to alter and you start to change things with what infraction will make someone ineligible, what won't, then you start to open a bit of a Pandora's box, and then there's no telling how far someone will be willing to push that. So for me, I think it has to stay best and fairest. Perhaps maybe we need to look at the rulings for some of these infractions then, but that's my view. You back on, Brian? Brian, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I've got you now, mate. Just as I threw it back to you, mate, it went quiet.
Okay, well, sorry about that, listeners. So, Grillsy, should the AFL change the eligibility of the Brownlow medal?
I'm a traditionalist as well, and I'm sick to death of all those rule changes that have gone on throughout our great game over the last 5, 10, 15 years. And I think it's about time we just all stood up as one and said, enough is enough. It's got to stop. If you do the crime, you do the time. It's plain. Chris Grant, you're never going to get that around your neck, son. You did the time. Okay? No point standing up now. Too late.
Thanks, gents, for your views. Now, whilst on the topic, can I get your Brownlow tips and smokies, please?
Yeah, guys, I think it goes without saying, Dusty's the number one, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tom Mitchell come through. I think he's polled in enough Hawthorn games, both in wins and losses with his incredible disposal tally this year, that he could be a very strong rank outsider and may have enough of those 1 and 2 votes to maybe poll like Gary Ablett did in previous years. That's my view, mate.
Thanks, Langers. Grillsy, what are your predictions?
Well, obviously, there's the Dusty to win. I've got a couple of top 5 smokies. Dane Zorko from Brisbane. I thought his good games have been really good in Brisbane wins, so he's going to poll a lot of threes there that might just sneak him into a top 5. And Dylan Shield from GWS as well. He's another one who's had some really good games in their wins.
Yeah, definitely, fellas. Those guys have had some great seasons. Now, yeah, for me, Dusty to win, Danger to poll the most votes, and Gary Ablett as a 251 smoky to poll well, as he's got no one pinching votes from him. And now the week's tips and premiership winner, Langers.
Yeah, guys, I think on the back end of last weekend, we saw a different Cats outfit come out, one that was quite mentally strong. And look, I think they're going to run over the Crows in the end. And I think Tigers to be giant killers and make their way into a GF. So for me, it's an all-feline grand final.
Meow. Righto, Grills. What do you think?
Well, I'm leaning towards a Tiger tsunami this weekend with their 485,000 fans that seem to be going to this game. And the Adelaide Crows will be too good for Geelong. That was their grand final last week. They played out of their skin and they won't do it 2 weeks in a row. And the Tiger tsunami will roll on through to the big one and they'll take out the grand final.
Cool. Well, as predicted last week, I tipped the Cats to get through, and I think they'll continue their merry way to meet the Tigers and then go on to smash them in the grand final and restore some sanity. Okay, thanks, gents, and thanks, viewers, for watching. Do you agree with our biased opinions? Either way, we would love your feedback. So please leave a comment below, and if you'd like to hear more from the One-Eyed Fan, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page. We'll be back next week for more biased views. And as we say here at the One-Eyed Fan, if you're not one-eyed, you're not a fan.